You wake up with a fever. Your head feels heavy. Every muscle aches as if your body spent the entire night fighting an invisible enemy. There is no clinic nearby, no pharmacy, no emergency room. What do? For most people today, the answer is simple. You take medicine. You call a doctor. You wait for modern science to do what it does best. But for roughly 300,000 years of human history, none of those options existed. And yet your ancestors survived. Not all of them, of course. Many died from infections that would be trivial today, while others lived through injuries that seem impossible without modern medicine. How? The answer reveals something surprising about the human body, the human mind, and the communities that allowed your species to conquer nearly every environment on Earth. One of the biggest misconceptions about prehistoric life is that ancient humans were constantly dropping dead from every scrape and illness. That certainly happened. Life was dangerous. But archaeological evidence shows a far more complicated story. Take Shanidar Cave in modern-day Iraq. There, researchers discovered the remains of a Neanderthal man who had suffered devastating injuries during his lifetime. One arm was likely useless. He may have been partially blind. Several bones had healed from serious trauma. Yet he survived for years after those injuries occurred. How? He almost certainly could not have hunted large game efficiently on his own. He needed help. That means other people cared for him, fed him, protected him, supported him. In other words, one of the oldest forms of medicine was not a plant or a tool. It was compassion. The famous archaeologist Ralph Selecki helped bring attention to these discoveries, and they transformed how scientists viewed ancient humans. Caregiving was not invented by civilization. It existed long before cities, governments, or hospitals. Your ancestors survived because they rarely faced illness alone. That pattern appears again and again throughout prehistory. Ancient humans lived in small groups where everyone's survival was connected. A sick hunter weakened the entire band. An injured mother affected the future of the group. Helping others was not merely kindness. It was a survival strategy. But social support was only part of the story. Ancient humans also developed surprisingly sophisticated knowledge about the natural world around them. Imagine walking through a prehistoric landscape. Every tree matters. Every root matters. Every flower matters. The difference between life and death may depend on knowing which plants soothe pain and which ones stop your heart. Over thousands of generations, people accumulated enormous amounts of practical medical knowledge. Not laboratory science, observation, trial and error, memory, culture. Many traditional societies documented by anthropologists possess detailed understanding of medicinal plants, and there is good reason to believe ancient humans developed similar expertise. Consider willow bark. Long before aspirin existed, people in various parts of the world used willow for pain relief. Why did it work? Because willow contains salicin, a compound related to the active ingredient that eventually inspired aspirin. Ancient people did not know the chemistry. They knew the results. A person chewed the bark. Pain decreased. The knowledge survived. Generation after generation. Plants were only one tool. Fire was another. Today, fire feels ordinary. For ancient humans, it was transformative. Fire cooked food, making nutrients easier to absorb. Fire reduced harmful microbes in meat. Fire provided warmth that helped vulnerable people survive cold nights. Fire also produced smoke and ash, substances that many cultures used in wound care and pest control. Something as simple as maintaining a fire could dramatically improve survival odds. Then there was the human immune system itself. Your body is not passive. It never has been. Every second, armies of specialized cells patrol your tissues. They identify threats. They attack invaders. They remember previous infections. This biological defense system evolved long before doctors appeared. For hundreds of thousands of years, it was humanity's primary line of protection. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer populations often find evidence of strong immune adaptations shaped by generations of exposure to local diseases. That does not mean ancient humans were healthier than modern people. Far from it. But it does mean your body carries evolutionary solutions forged across immense stretches of time. The immune system you rely on today was built in a world without hospitals. Of course, some injuries required more than immunity. Imagine a hunting accident. A sharp stone cuts deeply into your leg. Blood pours from the wound. What happens next? Archaeological evidence suggests that prehistoric humans understood basic wound management surprisingly well. Pressure stops bleeding. Clean water helps remove dirt. Plant fibers can function as bandages. Animal sinew, which is tough connective tissue, was sometimes used like thread. None of this required modern medical textbooks. It required experience. Enough accidents happened that communities learned what increased survival and what made things worse. Over time, those lessons accumulated. Knowledge became tradition. Tradition became culture. Culture became one of humanity's greatest survival technologies. Some of the most remarkable evidence comes from ancient dentistry. In Mehrgarh, an archaeological site in present-day Pakistan, researchers discovered teeth that appear to have been drilled thousands of years before modern dentistry. The work was surprisingly precise. Someone recognized a problem. Someone developed a solution. Someone performed the procedure. That is medicine, not modern medicine, but medicine nonetheless. Another fascinating clue comes from Ötzi the Iceman. This remarkably preserved individual lived more than 5,000 years ago. When scientists examined his remains, they found evidence suggesting he carried medicinal fungi. One species may have helped combat parasites. Another may have had antibacterial properties. Whether used intentionally for treatment or carried for other reasons, the discovery hints at medical knowledge that was far more advanced than many people imagine. So let's reconstruct today. You are living 30,000 years ago. The sun has barely risen. The air is cold. You notice a painful swelling near your hand. You cannot ignore it. Infection is dangerous. But you are not helpless. An older member of the group examines it. They have seen something similar before. A plant known to reduce inflammation is prepared. The wound is cleaned. You rest near the fire. Food is shared with you despite your reduced ability to contribute. People check on your condition. The swelling slowly improves. Days later, you return to normal activity. There are no prescriptions, no insurance forms, no waiting rooms. Yet there is observation, experience, community, and accumulated knowledge. Many recoveries likely happened exactly this way. Not because ancient medicine was magical, because practical solutions often work. But there is another side to the story. Ancient humans also faced limits that modern medicine has largely overcome. A severe bacterial infection could be catastrophic. Childbirth carried enormous risks. Broken bones sometimes healed poorly. Diseases that are now preventable could spread unchecked. Life expectancy statistics often make prehistoric life look extraordinarily short, but those numbers are heavily influenced by infant mortality. Many children never reached adulthood. Those who survived childhood often lived much longer than people assume. Still, the dangers were real. Ancient medicine was not a perfect system. It was a constant battle against forces that modern healthcare now manages far more effectively. This creates a counterintuitive truth. When people imagine prehistoric humans, they often focus on what they lacked. No antibiotics, no surgeons, no pharmacies, no hospitals. But survival does not depend only on advanced technology. It also depends on social bonds, environmental knowledge, and behaviors that reduce risk before illness occurs. In some ways, ancient humans were forced to become experts at prevention. They understood seasonal foods. They stayed physically active. They spent extensive time outdoors. They maintained close social connections. These habits did not eliminate disease. Nothing could. But they often supported overall resilience. Anthropologist James Sussman has written extensively about hunter-gatherer societies and how different many aspects of their daily lives were from modern assumptions. Their world was difficult, yet it was not simply a story of constant suffering. Human beings adapted, again and again, across deserts, forests, coastlines, mountains, and frozen landscapes. That adaptability may be the greatest medical advantage your species ever possessed. The remarkable thing is that traces of those ancient survival systems still exist inside your life today. When a friend brings you food while you are sick, you are participating in a behavior older than civilization. When your immune system fights an infection, it relies on defenses shaped over countless generations. When researchers search plants for new medicines, they often rediscover solutions that traditional knowledge recognized long ago. The distance between modern medicine and ancient survival is smaller than it first appears. One built upon the other. Doctors did not emerge from nowhere. Hospitals did not emerge from nowhere. Medical science itself is part of a much older human story, a story of observation, a story of experimentation, a story of people refusing to give up when someone they cared about was suffering. Your ancestors were not reckless survivors stumbling through a hostile world. They were skilled observers, problem solvers, caregivers, teachers. Their tools were simpler, their risks were greater, their options were fewer. Yet those people managed to survive long enough to pass their knowledge forward, generation after generation, until it eventually became the foundation of modern medicine. So the next time you take a pill, visit a clinic, or benefit from a medical breakthrough, remember that the story did not begin there. It began around campfires. It began with shared knowledge. It began with someone helping an injured companion survive another day. And it began with a species determined to care for one another long before anyone could call themselves a doctor. You wake up with a fever. Today, that sentence sounds frightening for a very different reason. Because now you know how extraordinary it is that your ancestors survived it at all.